Let's go to Mizzou and South Carolina. Number 23 Mizzou, number 21 South Carolina. South
They
Carolina's
really
at
sandwiched us between those two teams to prove a point. It's like you right between South Carolina, who you beat, and Mizzou, who I always make fun of.
yeah, LSU sitting there at 22. Yeah, 21, 22, 23. I could just throw Vandy in there at 25 just for fun. They decided not
They're
to do
better than
that.
us. I don't want to play them.
I'm just
They
saying.
beat Alabama.
Diego Pavia, quarterback run game. LSU, that would not be
I
fun.
do not want to see Diego Pavia.
Yeah. South Carolina's 12.5 point favorite. The over-under I have, Will, is 14.8 South Carolina points. 14.8. That can happen.
Okay.
That's what the Gamecocks are averaging in this 5-game losing streak against Mizzou. Drinks never lost, South Carolina. 4-0. My favorite trivia fact about this game during this 5-year streak, which has favored Mizzou. Who was the last quarterback to beat Mizzou in a South Carolina uniform?
Oh my gosh. I honestly couldn't even begin to guess that. Is it Shaw? No.
Michael Scarnecchia. That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
Michael Scarn.
Our boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Doing well right now, maybe. No idea. Anyways, Will, I've got playoff thoughts on this one. Is it funny to talk about playoff thoughts with a game like this? Perhaps. But look, I don't believe either of these teams have a playoff path, okay? Though I do believe, and both things can be true at the same time, I believe South Carolina could very well be better than multiple teams who end up making the playoff. And I would probably pick South Carolina to beat those teams on a neutral site. But getting blown out by Ole Miss, that still happened. It wasn't a bad loss for South Carolina, but it's entirely different if you were discussing 3 nail-biter losses against quality foes compared to like 2 quality losses and 1 blowout loss. You know, if it's just, we're literally 3 plays away, but that's not the case. You can't even make that case. Plus, the problem for South Carolina is that if it wins out and if it beats Mizzou and Clemson, it'll knock both of those teams out of the college football playoff top 25, right? Like Mizzou, with a loss, is going to fall out of the top 25. Clemson, if it suffers a 3rd loss and does so against South Carolina, is going to fall out of the top 25, meaning that South Carolina will likely, if it goes 9-3, only have 1 CFP top 25 win, albeit a dominant one against a respected Texas A&M squad. I just think that South Carolina won't hurdle teams with the head-to-head, because Alabama, Ole Miss, and then even like being 1 spot ahead of 3-loss LSU right now, that at least has some resistance. McElroy brought it up on the ranking show that, wow, why is South Carolina ahead of LSU when LSU went into Columbia and won that football game? We don't need to get into a discussion about whether or not that was deserved or not, but reality, both these teams are at least fighting for respect. They're always fighting for respect, okay? So regardless of, and I get it, if the playoff conversation warrants it near the end of this broadcast, they'll get into it and they'll discuss the credentials. Why can't South Carolina make the playoff? You know that'll happen if this is a lopsided type game. You can earn respect in this game, even if the playoff isn't on the table, all right? You can still earn respect by being a 9-win team, which South Carolina can still be in the regular season, and win a game as a top 25 team against the top 25 team. I need to come up with a proper metric for this. Maybe someone has come up with this, but it's not a how do you like me now win, but it's a everybody's watching us win.
Yeah.
There's a better name out there for it, okay? But I like that stat because I think it can show why a team might feel like it never cracks national conversations outside of an upset here or there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like last year, I kept bringing up for Mizzou, the biggest thing that they had to overcome was getting one of those wins. And for the first time in 9 years, Mizzou beat an AP top 25 team as an AP top 25 team, did that by destroying Tennessee. Looks like it was maybe going to happen against LSU. That didn't end up happening. Mm-hmm. So I brought it up earlier in the year for South Carolina because if they had beaten LSU in that game, they would have entered the top 25 and had a slew of ranked games ahead to try and really build something and really get that respect that they covet. That didn't happen, obviously. The last time that South Carolina beat an AP top 25 team as an AP top 25 team, 2014. Beat number 6 Georgia. It's been 10 years, man. That is the only such instance in the playoff era that South Carolina has beat an AP top 25 team as an AP top 25 team. They got blown out in a top 25 matchup against Georgia 2018. That was kind of a trendy early season upset pick to say South Carolina is going to be upset Georgia. Did not come close to happening. They lost in the Wild Bowl game a couple of years ago to Tyler Buckner, Notre Dame, 2022. Being revented about South Carolina not being ranked, after beating Vandy. And he's right to feel slighted based on who they've been this year. But he knows as well as anyone, okay? It is awfully difficult to shake perception of teams and people in this sport, wherein perception is often reality. I think South Carolina starts getting even more people to realize that it's not just a spunky team who can show up for a night game at home. This is an imposing defensive line that can play anywhere, anytime. And right now, this 1-2 punch with Lenore Sellers and Rocket Sanders is fun. It is really, really fun to watch. I think they can execute a similar game plan to what Alabama did to Mizzou a few weeks ago. Not sure about Brady Cook's status. Drew Pine shut me up down the stretch with what he did against Oklahoma. Nice job by Kirby Moore scheming as well with extra time. I'll take South Carolina to win by double digits. But I'm going to give some respect to the Mizzou winning streak. I'm going to say that they don't quite cover. South Carolina wins 24-14.
I am going to agree with 85% of what you said, but I do want one big different caveat here. I actually think that the national perception of these two teams is different because of those games. So and in a weird technicality sense, right? Because plenty of people thought that South Carolina played well enough to win against LSU. And for game day, the atmosphere looked awesome. You know what I'm saying? They showed up for that moment with a backup quarterback nonetheless. And the weird play at the end. I think that South Carolina has had enough of these just insane upset wins, even specifically under Beamer. Let's just throw LSU in a different pile because it wasn't a win. But A&M this year, blowout, crazy win. The 2 in 22, Tennessee, Clemson. Yeah. And the thing about the Tennessee one is it was so bad that people tuned in. It was I gotta go watch Tennessee lose. And so everybody got over there and they just kept smoking them. It wasn't oh, this is a back and forth game. We put it on a multi-view. It was this is crazy. I remember where it was. I was they're still doing this. Oh, all right. And so point being I think that Beamer has already gotten a little bit more of that love than Drink. And from Drink's standpoint, it's yeah, I keep smoking this guy. What does it matter? It's no, I think you're right. It's that Mizzou has kind of been turtling all season with, they start off with the high ranking. People are watching them as a ranked team. They're not doing great with the target on their back. They almost lost to Vandy back when that was not cool to do. They just have all these weird games. At Florida last year was another great example with Mizzou where it's oh, you're over the hump. You had this great game against Tennessee. Oh no, Florida is now going to beat you. And they didn't, obviously. But point being, Mizzou has gotten this tag as this team that whenever their expectations, they go under them. Whereas South Carolina has remained an interesting and fun team, I feel. Even when they couldn't exactly figure it out, the running backs, their tight ends, they had the weird returns, they had the punt blocks. So I think I'm with you, but I think that our average ape brain is just consumers. I don't think we're viewing it as ranked team versus ranked team. It's quote unquote big game. And I think that South Carolina under Beamer has showed up at those in a kind of a wild. I don't know who I could really compare that to. Maybe old boy, who is it? Who's it? Pitt, not Dazio. Who's the Pitt coach?
Pat Narduzzi.
Narduzzi, there we go. Like Narduzzi, it's oh, I feel like I get one of these a year out of him, and so they always are kind of hanging around. And I think Beamer has kind of gotten that same thing. So yeah, for the same reason, then this game, I like South Carolina, and I think that I weirdly trust them despite the quarterback situation, despite all the things that have happened. So yeah, I don't know. I'm right there with you in that these two teams are similar in a way, and that they're always kind of in this same we've seen great teams, we've seen really talented players, we've even seen great quarterbacks, I would argue, out of both of these teams. But in the modern era, they haven't consistently put it together. But I think that South Carolina has been responsible for more fun moments, even going all the way back to Garcia.
Yeah, they have established themselves now as a team that you can flip on a given Saturday. Mm-hmm. But appointment viewing to watch them from start to finish is still a little bit tougher to come by. And you win games like this. And this is, in the past, been the game that, all right, South Carolina, maybe they get into the top 25. Maybe they feel like they're building some momentum. And then Mizzou is just right there to take the rug out from under them. That's who they have been. They have been the thorn in Beamer's side. And in many ways, Mizzou has been the team that has prevented South Carolina from getting to those heights. And so in a game like this, when in theory, they should have a huge advantage up front, whether it's Drew Pine or whether it's a less than 100% Brady Cook. You would think that defensive line should feast. Mm-hmm. And if you don't find a way to win this one, then you will go back to kind of getting, you know what, you're nothing more than frisky. South Carolina needs to show that it's more than frisky. You need to show that they're a good football team, and they have done that in a lot of different weeks. They certainly showed it, I think, over the course of the last month plus. Can you show it in a game like this with the historical significance of ending that Mizzou losing streak? That's a very important question for Shane Beamer to answer.
And I'll make one more point about this too, really quick, which is, you know what actually just kind of like is unfortunate about this matchup is that if you are like a big time national guy and you're not like dialed into matchups like this, it would be so easy to write off whoever wins this game as the other team was like not good. But we've seen to this
because they'll fall out of the top 25.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what's so weird. It's like we're guaranteeing whoever loses this game is out of the top 25.
Yep.
And so whenever we go back to the ranking, that team's not really not any good. And that sucks because both of these teams, you could argue Mizzou is kind of underwhelmed this year. That is due in part to quarterback health and a factor like lots of different random things. But like to act like, oh, well, see, you can't fool me. It's like, no, these teams have been fighting all year. Like it's already this deep into the season. We're mid-November and both of these teams are ranked in the SEC. Pretty impressive.
This would be heads and shoulders above anything Mizzou has done all year. If they go into Columbia and beat this team with the disadvantages we believe that they have, if they won a game like this, it would be, oh my gosh, I mean, more impressive, so much more impressive than anything that they have done. It's just the spread is what it is because they have not looked the part against top 25 teams. And that's why it's sitting there at 12.5, even though Beamer, he's got to get over the Mizzou hump. This seems like a good time to do it.